Hey guys, Theophilus, most excellent here, and as always, thanks for tuning in. Today I'm going to be talking about a conspiratorial topic, so it's geared toward those of my friends that, wear tinfoil hats like me. But I'm going to be talking about the connection between the owl that you see everywhere, and it's usually associated with the owl of the Bohemian Grove, the big statue, and Baphomet, which you would think those two things really don't have much of a connection. I mean, other than people say that the owl's Moloch, and Moloch is usually depicted as a bull, and so maybe there's a connection there, but that's one of the things I want to point out in this video. Why is everyone calling that owl Moloch? And the only reason I can fathom is because they do child sacrifices, supposedly, to that owl statue at the Bohemian Grove. But if you think about it, it doesn't have to be Moloch for people to do child sacrifice to it. That's not the only pagan deity that's ever had child sacrifices associated with it, And so I just wanted to show you guys something that I picked up on a while back, and I thought it was an interesting connection between the owl and Baphomet, and I don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole with this, but I just want to show you this picture, and if you've spent any time looking into occult symbolism, I'm sure you've come across this picture about 1,000 times. And I think it's funny how many connections can be made with this picture. I mean, first off, it's not just any picture. It's the first ever picture of Baphomet that we know of. It was drawn by Eliphas Levi. It's the sabbatic goat, and it's very dualistic. And Eliphas Levi, that's actually, he's actually a French guy with a French name, but that's his name translated into Hebrew because, he was trying to be clever or whatever. But anyways, he was a huge transcendental magician, all these kinds of things. He influenced Aleister Crowley, huge into dualism, obviously, when you look at this picture and some of his other drawings. And people like that believe that, good and evil, dark and light, they all go hand in hand. You'll always hear him say, you can't have good without evil, which I would beg to differ. I mean, according to the Bible, God does away with all evil in the end, and so not according to God. In fact, I would even argue that that's all you do have, because evil is just what we call activity that doesn't live up to God's standard of what is right. And so when you don't behave like God, you're automatically evil. And so it's almost like a shadow, how, that's the absence of light. A shadow is not something in and of itself. It's the absence of the photons that make up light. A shadow, you can't observe it scientifically. You can't put it under a microscope and weigh it. Light, you can do that. In the same way, good and evil is just the absence of good. But that's basically a short form of my rant against dualism that you see swirling about us in occultism these days. But let me get on to showing you what the connection between this picture by Eliphas Levi and the owl is. Okay, so here's that picture again, the one that Eliphas Levi drew, the first picture of Baphomet, and the one that's always, a go-to for all the occultists, and be careful because there's hundreds of pictures out there that come later, and in fact there's even pictures where it's almost exactly the same as this, but you can tell that it's added to because that flame at the top that you see there, it's kind of cut off a little bit, it looks like. They add to that and they finish off the picture, it looks like. But you can see here in this picture that this is the original one found in his book, and it's the one that he originally made. I mean, if you go on Wikipedia, this is the one you're going to find if you look up Baphomet. So we're going to talk about this one, not the other ones, because they're later added to, all kinds of stuff like that. So the connection I want to point out is if you look at this picture, this original picture, If you look up on top of Baphomet's head, and that's why I was making such a big deal about making sure that you look at the original picture that Eliphas Levi drew, because you can see, if you look closely there at that flame right above his head, it's supposed to represent the flame of knowledge, like Prometheus brought the flame to man, he brought fire to mankind, which essentially represented the flame of knowledge. It released them from being automatons to being sentient, self-aware creatures where they were free agents, able to make free will choices from then on. And, this is the same story as Lucifer in Gnosticism. He brings knowledge to mankind. And, the reason it's different is because the same story told for thousands of years and starts to change over time. When you don't have like a text that's written down and maintained, the story morphs over and over and over again, and people try to fit it into the rest of their mythos, like the rest of their mythology. And that's what happened with Prometheus, obviously. Another place you see that kind of symbolism would be the Statue of Liberty, who is the goddess Libertas, or, some people say it's Mithra. Either way, you have this kind of like a androgynous person holding up the torch, and, it's made by Freemasons. And that torch, the flame, represents the flame of knowledge, the light of Lucifer. You have the crown that she's wearing is more like beams of light shooting out of her head. And, this kind of imagery is nothing new. Statue of Liberty isn't the first one to come along and be depicted in this way. For instance, you have Colossus at Rhodes, very similar imagery with the torch, the flame in the bowl above his head, and the crown of rays. Also Helios, and again, he's holding a torch, he has the crown of rays, just like the Statue of Liberty. So all these different depictions and stories, they all converge on something in the past, I think. I don't think that this is all just random. I think that all this comes from somewhere, and I think where it comes from is Lucifer, the light bearer. These are all depictions of the light bearer, the original one. And I definitely don't think it's a coincidence how close the stories are between Lucifer and Prometheus. Prometheus steals this flame of knowledge, the flame of enlightenment, and he uses it to enlighten man, and then he's cursed for it. Same thing with, Lucifer, the light bearer. In Gnosticism, he brings the light of knowledge. He enlightens mankind, and that's why, the elite, they call themselves the Illuminati, because they believe they're illuminated by Lucifer. They've been given this extraordinary knowledge that leads to divinity, that they're going to become divine beings, that they'll go through apotheosis, becoming God, and they believe they'll achieve this through knowledge, the knowledge that Lucifer is going to give to them. So this flame above his head, you'll notice that Eliphas Levi, in his original picture, he drew it in such a way as to make it look like an owl. And you can see here, I've kind of added some red to it so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. And also it helps if you invert the colors, you can kind of see it a little bit better. But you can see there that it's just a little allusion to an owl, which represents wisdom. And so you have this connection between the light, the flame of knowledge, the owl, which represents wisdom. And you'll notice also that that's not the only thing that he hid there, and a lot of times people don't really pick up on even this, and this one's even easier to notice. The owl is actually the pupil to an eye, and you see those hash marks that go out around. You can see that forms an eye, that the owl is the pupil of this huge eye. And that means that you have this really old all-seeing eye here, and it's put right into the Baphomet image, and most people don't even see this. Now you can see here in these pictures that some people have picked up on this, and they run with it. They show it in some other imagery. So that's the connection between the owl and Baphomet, and I believe that's why you see the elites in the Bohemian Grove they're worshiping this owl image, but behind closed doors, they all know what they're doing. They all know the symbology. They know they're worshiping Baphomet, but they're trying to keep this kind of esoteric knowledge to themselves so that you don't know. That's actually what that owl represents. It represents Baphomet, and it's just a sneaky way of worshiping Baphomet, because otherwise it's just an owl in the middle of the woods. So I hope this, connected some dots in the back of your mind, like it did for me. But I just want to thank everybody who's subscribed to my channel, everybody who's liking my stuff, and everybody who supports me, and all my friends and everybody who's sharing my videos. I love all you guys very much. I hope that as a side issue, I hope that this benefited you, and I hope that you enjoyed it, and that you found it to be interesting at the very least. Alright. Godspeed, guys.